In June, we were told at the refugee camp that we had been accepted to America. We were told we were going to Vermont. And I thought, wow, that's America. I expected tall buildings and roller skates and big cars. And I got a lot of cows and mountains and snow instead. It was cold. It was very different. I didn't speak the language. I didn't know anything about the culture. This is our first apartment in Vermont when we came to America. I lived on the second floor story of that house right there, and downstairs the dentist's office. It just looked so enclosed to me. And it stood alone, and it wasn't open, there weren't people. It just felt really isolated and lonely. As a 9-year-old coming into America, to this small, picturesque town, it really was almost Norman Rockwell coming to life. And yet, as far as my physical safety, I knew I was safe. There were times when, during July 4th, if the fireworks went out, I was scared and trying to find safety. And on any other normal day, if a plane fly too low in the sky, I would automatically duck as well. For a split second, you think, where am I? Just sort of instinctual need to survive, to protect yourself. And then I would just look up and take a deep breath and realize that I'm back safe in this town. This is Albert D. Lawton Middle School, and I was here for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade from 1982 to 1985. Behind these walls were my chances of being normal, of being an American, if I only spoke the right words, wore the right clothes, knew the right songs. Maybe I could be just like everybody else and pick up that lightness that they all seem to possess. If I could become an American enough, then I could stop being a Cambodian. I go to sleep at night and I'm in Cambodia. I'm a Cambodian girl dreaming of my sister, dreaming of the war and having nightmares about people trying to kill me. I wake up in the morning and I have to be an American girl. I wanted to be an American girl, so I did my hair like Farrah Fawcett and had blue eyeshadow makeup on and with my school bags and, you know, with my overly confident attitude. 2:55, the bell rings. Other kids get to be and go home and be a brother or sister. I get to put on my bag and go back home and be a Cambodian. And I go to sleep and at the end of the day, I'm not sure who I am. I didn't know what was going on in Cambodia at the time because while we were in America, we had no relationships and no connections to Cambodia. The U.S. government did not normalize relationship with the Cambodian government until 1993. For the rest of the world, that doesn't mean anything. For my family, it meant that we couldn't call, we couldn't write, we couldn't visit.
I always think about my family and relatives all the time and make me very lonely. Also, I'm very worried about their safety because the war's still going on at that time. And I'm safe here in the United States, but I'm worried about my brother and sister over there.
The war raged on in my mind even while my body was adjusting and adapting to peace. And as long as the war was still in my mind, it wasn't over for me. It got to the point where I was so depressed that I just didn't know how to live. The more I developed, the more my body changed from a girl to a woman, the more depressed I became. I also didn't want to grow into a woman's body because the women's bodies were targets of violence in the war. At the time also, it was taking care of my 2 nieces because my brothers and sister-in-law were working. And after I put them to bed, I would just take a handful of pills and hope that I would close my eyes and go to sleep and not wake up. But I'm also a Cambodian, American, Chinese, Asian responsible girl. And I was put in charge of these 2 little girls And one was 5 and one was barely 1, and they just kept crying and needed diapers changing and being fed and tucked in, and they wouldn't stop crying until I woke up and changed their diapers. And each night I swallowed the pills and they cried. I would make myself vomit up the toxic and go and take care of them.
You're popping the bubbles. You're gonna miss the bubbles.
My nieces saved me. I was depressed. I wanted to die. If something happened to me, I didn't want my 5-year-old niece to discover me. I didn't want her to try to wake me up. I didn't want that to be on her psyche. I didn't want that to be her experience of life. When I was a freshman in high school, I took an English class where I had to write an essay, and I decided to write on Cambodia. Worked really hard on it by myself, didn't talk to my brother about it, handed in my paper, and the next day my teacher gave it back to me with an A++ on it. I was astounded, and I couldn't believe my eyes. I went up to my teacher and I said, "This can't be right. I know for a fact there are a lot of errors in there." He took me aside and said, "There are errors in there. For this once, I wanted you to know that sometimes contents count more than correct grammars." And it made such a big difference to me because I realized that he actually heard my story. So I started keeping a journal and diary. The next thing I know, I was writing non-stop. I couldn't stop myself. And I would write in the morning, would write when it's time for dinner, and I would write any chance I had, and I just kept on writing. It just as if once I started the process, I couldn't stop. 6 months later, I had over 300 pages. When I wasn't talking about it, it was just like a monster. When I was writing about it, I can actually find words for it. And when I could find the word for it, I could control it.
We feel honored at the bookshop that we have Loung Ung here to talk about her latest book.
Thank you so much for being here. Today, I've done this so many times, and it just hit me. It's the 30th anniversary of the Khmer Rouge takeover, and it's my birthday. I am 25 again this year, for the 10th times in a row, and it's just always really hard. So the first book could be said to be about a book about surviving wars. This one's about surviving peace and what it took. I hear footsteps behind me. I turn to see Ma smiling at me. She's alive and beautiful and bask in a soft twilight that makes her look golden and angelic. "What are you doing here?" I ask her. "Just walking with you," she replies. As we trek along the 1,000-year-old temple steps, neither of us speaks a word. It's the first time in my life I am with her, unencumbered by the feeling of loss, terror, horror, or sadness. As an adult, I continue to write and publish because I just don't want the bastards to win. And it's just as simple as that. They try to silence me once, and I've just gotten to the point where I am just not going to let me silence me. I don't want them to win. This is my fight. This is my rebellion against the Khmer Rouge. They've silenced so many people. They've silenced over 2 million Cambodians. They're just not going to succeed with this girl. They just didn't want to go. I was afraid of what I would see. The last time I saw it, there were wounded people, there were hungers and starvations, and I didn't want to come face to face with that. You know, for weeks, I would have nightmares about getting onto a plane as this empowered, independent, adult American woman who could travel the world by herself and then get off the plane as this tiny little child, hopeless, hopeless, voiceless, getting lost, and I just didn't want that feeling. We're probably about 10-15 minutes to my sister, and it's really wonderful. It's comforting. In my Cambodian Chinese culture, we have this word called ooh-ah. And it's literally ooh-ah. It's just everybody together, speaking at once, eating at once, touching you. My sister loves being a mother. I don't have children. I think she's must be tired all the time. She thinks I am been made with not enough water. There's a word we call ot khop tak, and it literally means someone who is born without enough water in them. And so I must not have enough water in my body if I don't have children. There's my sister. Chọt lại nó bán ấy. Ở đây thì tranh đó. Chọt lại nó này. Chou. Dạ? Rồi bên nắng nghe nè. Hai mày đấy hả? Cho mỏ nhau mấy? Khốn nhưng thơm mãn. Mưa thoa tầm na mưa khơi lọ chiên thôi. Nắng phê nhưng lọ chiên bị đâm.
Em toàn cô này từ cô mày.
Chẳng màn khai ấy.
Mày biết ngồi khai.
So these are all my family members. My brother Khoi. This is my youngest niece. Khoi's daughter. And Khoi's wife. Say chim riệp xưa mới. And Chou's youngest daughter. And Chou's husband. And Khoi's oldest son. And Chou's other daughter. She's feisty. Cái đó là Jane. She's just like me. Jane đôi từ khi ông nó. Cái. We've grown up differently. While I was in America, going to school, going to high school, flirting with boys, hoping, having crushes on boys and hoping that they pay attention to me, Chou was going through her teenage year in Cambodia. She didn't have that luxury of going to school, of wondering what the fashionable hairstyle is, of wanting to having an experience where she goes to the proms, or the ball, and she was just working, trying to survive. Next thing you know, she was arranging a marriage. She got married and then had babies. She didn't want to get married right away, but she had to, because you just couldn't argue with your elders. This was Chou's house from 1991 to 2003.